you. All right, we're live.
All right, we're gonna go ahead and call the meeting to order at 5:30 p.m. It looks like everyone is here. I'm gonna make a motion to approve the
Thank you for the time.
agenda, including the minutes from the June 19th, 2024 meeting. I'll second that. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Any public commentary on the agenda items? Okay. Chairperson comments. So this will be my last meeting chairing. Thanks for bearing with me as I got my legs under me learning the process of doing this. And I guess I don't know who will end up in this seat, but great people on the committee. And so just like I said, thanks for bearing with me. Dwayne, thanks for keeping us organized and whatnot. And it's been a pleasure. So
Us too.
thank you. Okay, agenda item number 7. So discussion on the disc golf area. Ben was kind enough to put together some talking points. Ben, do you want to run through it? Do you want me to run through it?
Run through it, and they got any questions I can answer, that's fine.
You want me to do it? Okay. So in your packet there, if you see the disc golf area, it's 15 acres. Just a reminder, this kind of came from the discussion of what land does the village own, is any of it developable, etc. So like Ben has on there, the crew either drives or walks through the course once a week, looking for trash trees. They mow every 3rd week unless it's too wet out there. Obviously the summer probably presented some challenges last month. And then they trim and cut the trails once a year. Ben and I talked about this a little bit too. So it's hard to get an average of who's out there, probably averaging like 1 person a day, but sometimes it's more than that. There might be 3 people. You know, I know from the school standpoint, some of the 5 classes go out there quite a bit when the weather is nice. So then, you know, your numbers are going to be a little bit higher. There are residents that walk the trail out there 2 to 3 times a week. In the winter, those trails get utilized for both skiing and snowshoeing. And like I said, students do use the disc golf, walking trails, etc. Dog park users walk on the dog trails. I can attest we do that pretty often, actually. As far as developing, so there's no sewer, water, storm, or roadways. So we talked about a different property kind of with that same issue where, you know, that's one of the pieces of if we want to develop it, that's going to be an issue because it costs a lot of money to do that. The other piece of that is some of the property is classified as lowlands and also wetlands. And so once you get into that territory, they can't be developed, I think, because of DNR and whatnot, correct? So, you've got maps in your packet as well. Does anyone have any questions on that commentary? Any more
Do we
information?
know how much of it is classified as lowland or wetland?
Well, I put another map in there that showed the wetlands.
Yeah, but
Yes,
which parts?
it's hard to see, but it's the green along the big rip on the creek.
Oh, the green.
All that green shaded is actually wetlands.
Okay,
And then you can see where the elevations are. It's actually high when you come up, then you go, it's kind of a hole and lower, it's a hole in there. It's a lower elevation in the middle. Is that correct, Ben?
we're
Yeah, I
talking,
mean, it's probably half and half wet, you know, but there's quite a bit of trail that you can walk on there that is
okay,
a high ground, but then as soon as you see where we put the trail on the high grounds, as soon as you get off it, there's a creek back there and it really drops off in the wetlands up to the pallet shop.
thank you.
That's an elevation map, so you can kind of see it. And I put that in there after, so you know.
Any other questions? Thank you for the information, Ben. All right, next on the agenda is an update on the village comprehensive plan. Wayne, I believe you have
So
that.
there's one sheet in your packet. It's actually titled on the top, North Central, where Regional Planning Commission. Western Regional Planning Commission.
North Central
Wisconsin.
Wisconsin.
Wisconsin, there we go. Didn't get anymore. But basically, I told you last meeting, they do this kind of type of work. And they have how the plan usually goes through, you turn over the backside. And then the backside, they give you, but then you get the idea of what the budget goes for it. Their budget runs around 8,000, let's say 7,500. And then they have their restricted plan. Now, I also contacted Wood County by phone, and putting a letter together, and Jeremy.
He's Jason.
Jason.
Yeah.
Jason came, we talked for a while, and he said they did the last plan.
Mhm.
He's very familiar with it. He said we'll do the same thing as North Central Regional Planning Commission, but they're not as structured as they are. In other words, they're very structured. They got meetings, flip. He said we're a little more laid back. And anyway, we went through it, so they know a lot about the area. He said the cost is it going to be about the same. Games of cost. It's whoever you want to do business with. That's what it comes down to. And these are the two that I'd recommend, because you go to consultants, it'll be much higher than that. So if you're looking, or you want to move forward to update your comp plan for 2025, for budgetary purposes, you can put in 8,000.
Yep.
Are we required to do a comprehensive plan, or is it a strong suggestion? What
It is.
obligations do we have as a village?
It basically comes down to first of all, it's a law that you're supposed to have the comp plan. It's recommended that you do it every 10 years. And if you look at our comp plan, it's out of date.
It's outdated.
It's outdated. You don't have to do it. You don't have to do it, but I'm suggesting you either do it next year or do the next year. You're going to need to get into it. And the reason you get into it, it gives you a really good roadmap of where you, as a community, where you're going to look at where you're going, and as where you're going to grow and not grow, what's happening. If you look at the one we have now, it hit a lot of things that did not happen, but there was planned based on a lot of the entire mill coming down the roadway, there's a big bridge, it's all, and everything in there, unfortunately, did not happen, or some things did, but that's considered old and out of date.
Go ahead.
If we do a comp plan, is that an essential part of economic development? If we start developing some of the other properties, is the comp plan an integral part of that?
Yes, it is. Comp plan is a plan that most of all your developers plan, your
So-
community, it's
It's going to be useful if we start developing some other economic development in the old mill property or the admin
the
building.
main thing being useful is you don't leave it set on the shelf and not watch it, look at it.
Okay.
That's really got.
I'm trying to get an understanding
Yeah,
of
that is really
the
your
purpose and usefulness of it.
It's the document that we as staff or everybody, someone comes and says, this is what our plan is, this is what we're thinking of. It gives you guidance. It also helps you where new zoning can occur, not zoning. That's the idea behind it.
What's the I'm sorry. Go ahead. What's the
Mhm.
likelihood that we could find a grant to help us with that?
Grant for planning. Trying to think what's out there. Basically, they used to have when they first came out. And there was a lot of people with grants to get everybody started on it. And then after that, most communities have been updating them on their own. Consultants will run you at least up to 15,000 to update a grant like this. Is half because there are two things. You're in Wood County for Wood County doing it. Second, you're in the North Central Wisconsin Regional Planning Commission in their region. And because the county is a member, that's where you get these people to do it for less amount.
Having this,
Go ahead. No.
having this comp plan, is this something that we would also use for seeking for grants and funding?
Yes, it's all that. Talks about, it's also updates your transportation plan. Our last transportation plan was really got a good plan in there. I have reviewed it, and I'm also looked at some other certain things. It's interesting, you had certain grants in the past. Now there's new kind of programs, federal programs could actually bring that back up to date. That's if the region wants to do that. So that's something that transportation plan there is something that's very positive for the region, and definitely for us. But
Go ahead.
What would be the next steps then? Would it come out of committee, board? And then we would have to vote on it as a board and then look to put it in the budget? Is
Mhm.
that the correct plan if we so choose?
If you're interested, if you want to upgrade your plan for next year, you'd recommend that this amount, I mean, I'm saying it would, could these two parties would do in your budget. If you
That
don't,
has to come after it goes to the board, I would assume.
the budget takes to the board, that's how you, yeah,
Okay.
the budget process. And if you can't get into the budget process, you just have to
You,
turn it off.
you've got to pay for it.
Right.
Right.
That's why I think it's more of a budget issue more, right? If this committee wants to move forward and consider doing the plan. And
So that's what we're looking for out of this committee is the recommendation to move it to the board.
yes, I would say
Am I
that.
understanding that correctly?
So you're saying this is half the cost, but they're getting, I mean, planning is $75 an hour.
Well, that-
I'm in the wrong business. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, okay, I'm just gonna throw this out there because I know money's tight. Are there any parts of this where, Ben, feel free to jump in, but are there any parts of it that we have done in-house in the past, can do in-house in the past? Have done in-house in the past to cut down on some of this? Because again,
you will be much involved. In other words, staff has to be involved. Portion
our
of it.
staff get part of that 75.
No, basically, you want consultant, it's $120. That's why I know that it's much lower cost.
You guys want to keep me on as a consultant?
I'm
I'm joking, obviously, but wow, okay, it's pricey.
No, you wouldn't believe attorney's cost.
I think it,
It's a,
I'm sorry.
go ahead.
It is
I-
pricey.
I think it would be great to get a, like Wood County from Jason, like essentially what the breakdown for them would be, so we have comparables. And I think it'd be nice to have Jason because he did the last one.
Yeah. I
So
like
he
it.
can kind of, some of these things that they would have to learn about our community, he kind of already knows.
Maybe it would be 68 hours, maybe it would be.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
He could be down like 6,000 or 5. And that's why.
Right.
Yeah, I think it's worth
Yeah,
asking. 'cause-
I agree. I think we should compare apples to apples and then ask the question, and I'll support Jen is what can we do? Is there anything we can do to help lower that cost?
And he also said he has, I met her today, and he's got a planner and staff, and she does a lot of these still, different communities. And basically, he said the only way we could be participating, want to do it, be in a queue, he said be in 2025, and that's, it fits us very well. And actually, I was gonna say, that's where you should go.
Okay, so we'd like to hear back from Wood County and get some numbers from them. The other thing I heard you say, Dwayne, is that ultimately this is gonna put more on our staff to be partnering, so.
And actually, it's who gets very much involved is the planning commission and this
Mhm.
committee. And you get involved, and they'll start giving you, this was happening, this is direction, so you are in the driver's seat, you put this together. And usually it's the staff, and I know Ben would be involved in it because he knows a lot what's going on in the community. He knows a lot of what's happening, he knows what area, so he would definitely be involved with it. The last time I was done was, I think, help me, Ben, it was, your administrator back then.
Oh,
I think Mr. Terry would-
Terry's, yeah, Mr. Terry, Joe Terry was in, so he was much involved. You need someone like Ben or Joe Terry involved in this process.
So if I understand you correctly, it's gonna fall primarily on the planning commission. Is
Does it?
there any other committees that it would fall to?
This one right here.
This one.
Okay.
And if you look at the schedule, and this thing, these certain meetings, et cetera, there's they're doing the work. You do the work with them.
Mhm.
It's not them doing the work for you. It's a team process because you need to have participation. You got public participation. You got to know what's going on. It's not, it's fairly a nice process. It's that this one's more structured. Where Jason said, he says, we can just what we want based on your timing, et cetera. So Actually, yes, I like talking to Jay. Jason knows us very well too. And he's actually said, I looked at this, he said, I know what the last looks like. He said, you need to update it.
Do you need a recommendation or motion to get Wood County?
No, I don't think so. It just said, well, by your
We'll
minutes.
just put it in the
Minutes
minutes
that-
that we're asking for Wood County numbers, so
Mhm.
other than that, no action. at this
I don't
time.
think Jason didn't have time to give them to me. He was pretty busy, so. that's-
All right,
But this is what, you know where it's going, but I think this is, he said, he saw this, Jason. He said that he talked to region planning, he said, he knows their schedule, he said, we touch the same things.
Are we, let me just ask one question. Are we in agreement in this committee that it's a useful tool and it should?
it's a useful tool. That's hard to say. How useful was the last one?
I think it would have been, this is just my opinion, would be, it would have been helpful had we known about it and used it appropriately.
I was kind of surprised it didn't.
But
I mean, are there consequences of not doing it
Sometimes
legally
Is what I
and or
would be worried
economically?
There-
about
some-
funding.
your grants are, sometimes you have to have a certain plan in place, parks in there too, yeah, so you get your, you have a comp plan, you say, yeah, you submit it, that's part of your grant application.
I'm just asking this question so we all have an understanding of,
mhm,
I use a lot for grant applications.
because it's money, and we've got to be cautious about money, but if it's something that we're legally obligated to do, or it's economically purposeful for us, then
Good call.
Okay, so we'll wait for Wood County numbers. I'll put that in the minutes, Dwayne, so we have that, and then we can review next time. All right, item number 9, discussion
And
and
one thing.
Yeah.
Could the league maybe have information about grants that could help us fund that?
Sure, there's no problem, I got that. I mean, I gotta see what's out there, and I know, I didn't look yet. But the once you, I don't know if there are now, they used to be real strong, now everybody's kind of updating their own, I'm just being honest with you, I know.
Okay, item number 9, discussion and action of ordinance 7.06 parking restrictions. This came from Ben as well. It has to do with Wisconsin River Drive and some changes to parking there, I believe because of the construction, correct?
Yeah, so basically this change of ordinance comes from a couple different things. Comes back from May 12th, 2020, approval by the board to approve restricting parking when the project 6592072 and 65003, State Highway 54 and 73 are completed. All the board voted yes, so that was it. Board voted to basically get rid of parking back in 2012. And also a letter from the
2012?
May 12th, 2020.
that's why I was like, wait, I remember that conversation.
So, and then basically Wood County and the DOT sent us a letter basically stating that vehicles that are currently parking on 54 between First and Fourth Street, when the roadway has last been constructed, the village did not participate in the cost of parking. Therefore, no parking should be allowed on the roadway beside no parking. So we've had plenty of evidence and corresponding to the DOT and the state that should have been no parking for any time. But the road project came through and they put the signage up, so now we need to change our ordinance to allow the police department to enforce the no parking.
And this is just a clarification, no parking from Seneca to how far?
Basically, no parking on Wisconsin River Drive or Latender,
Oh,
other than from 5473 that you can still park to the YMCA. But no parking from Seneca Road all the way down anywhere.
I went through the old one.
So if you read it, we've adjusted the ordinance. You guys have a copy where we highlighted the ones out. Basically, whether it says no parking on south side of the tender. Motion the ordinance have been changed on the ordinance sheet.
So, go ahead.
It's only one side of the road we're talking
Both
about?
Both
sides.
sides.
That's why there's 4 different ones, because one says north side, one says south side. That's why they're all marked
Oh,
out.
So north,
It says
south,
west side,
east, west.
side.
Yep.
It's written there.
So there's still no, it eliminated the parking by the Alexander House.
Correct. Eliminate all parking.
On
On the state highway.
Yeah, okay.
This is, when you end up narrowing the road down, this is very common in other communities, and he's just following through with all the rules.
Understand.
Is it possible that under special circumstances that somebody like with a permission or permit?
They got a hold of the local police department and if they had a drop or something, yes, I mean, that's up to our police department to okay, short-term parking or delivery or, I mean, they're happening already. I mean, right, we've had shingles getting delivered. I mean, Scott's aware of this. He was involved in email back and forth. He's aware of this change. Basically, we're just changing it so now he can enforce it if there's cars parked
so any other questions? So we probably need a motion. And how exactly, so, motion to update ordinance 7.06 parking restrictions, do you,
Is this the draft that you actually can take?
Yep, it's drafts in there with that.
This would be the actual draft.
Yep.
Be chapter 7 traffic code.
You want me to make a motion?
Sure.
I make a motion that we approve the chapter 7.06 modifications to the city ordinance or the village ordinances as per the draft included in our packet.
Second.
got a motion in a second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you, Ben.
Thanks, Ben. All right, next up, discussion and possible action on the MOU for the therapy dog. So if you guys remember, we had a memorandum of understanding between the village and the school, and at the last board meeting, then it was brought up that there should be a memorandum of understanding between the village as well, or sorry, what did I say before, village and school? Anyways, between Officer Abbott, the police department, and the village. So enclosed in your packet, you'll see an MOU that Wayne works to create. This was vetted by Nick recently, and so you'll see changes in there. Nick's commentary is in the red, and then Dwayne has worked through this to enter changes. I don't think that Officer Abbott has seen all of the changes yet. I did read through them, and I think that they're acceptable, but at this point, the goal is to basically look through this. If we're okay, we'll move it forward to the board level, and then Dwayne will in turn just talk with Officer Abbott about those changes. Do you want to add to that at all?
Yeah, I've had a chance to talk to him just for a meeting.
Oh, perfect.
And there's one in here that I think, I gotta find out where it is, second page, where is the rename addition, sure. I forgot that Brandon indicated that it has to wait for a year, is that right?
Correct. The dog is insured under my own personal policy, which you guys have. That was given to you last meeting.
And
So
so I'm gonna,
one, and once it's certified, Acuity Insurance will then change the classification of the insurance to their.
so I'm gonna rewrite that the village would be named insurance under, after, I'll get his name, it's his owner of the dog, it comes at a certain level, and I'll put those words in you just said in here. And then the other thing is that then what we'll do is ask you, like you said, forward to the village board with these changes, and then we'll make sure Nick gets to see it before it gets to the village board.
And I asked a question. I printed off the draft that was sent out, the next first draft that had all of his, and this is the second draft. Is this, these changes?
Yes,
Into here?
yes.
Just so I understand the.
That's what I
process.
did, because I didn't realize, I read close and I just realized Nick had these, he didn't change the changes, he made a recommendation.
Yes. So did
So
we-
then I had to go in here to make the recommend
So
change.
did we change it according to what Nick
Yes,
said?
Yeah.
Then these comments are still valid? Because there's still some comments on your draft.
those are Nick's comments.
Okay.
Those are the same comments that you see in original.
um,
So I just put them all in
Okay.
one.
Yep.
In other words, instead of having two drafts in front of you, I just submit Nick's comments and you can see where I made changes from his comments.
Thank you.
Yeah, and it was a little hard. I saw his comment, but I went back into the draft and say, how do I make changes what he's recommended? That's what I did.
I'll make a motion to accept the MOU therapy dog with the modification or. Yeah. Yes.
I would, has Nick reviewed these?
No, him and I have done our work today, and then I'll make this change that he recommends. That's going back to Nick. Then I want that to go back to Nick before it comes to this.
Just so we're all covered. covered the meeting. Officer Abbott and the village.
Actually, Officer Abbott and I, he actually drafted up the first agreement.
Yeah.
I made some changes to him, and Nick had him, and he made his recommendations, so we're at a third iteration.
Table.
Without objection to talk to Officer Abbott.
Yeah,
Without
sorry.
objection, can we go off table to talk to Officer Abbott? Yep.
What are you thinking with all this? Do you see any snags or?
No, I just want to get the dog in the schools as soon as possible. That was the whole point.
All right.
I don't, I honestly, in my opinion, probably won't happen before school starts or when services start at this point. But when the dog is giving me okay, I'll start. I've already been using the dog in the public. I've had him at some events. He's going to the Boys and Girls Club in Rapids. And that's in 2 weeks to start working with kids. So he's doing very well. I'm very, very happy with the progress that he's done. So we're just waiting for the approval. from
We'll
you guys.
believe it when we see it.
The dog handles better than the owner.
What's the dog's name
That's
again?
Very
Dog's name is
believable.
Bosco.
Bosco.
What's the dog?
Bosco.
Bosco.
They
Can
were-
I ask one other question?
Oh, yeah.
In somewhere in here, Nick suggested that we understand what a therapy dog is. Is that what this is?
No,
That's the policy.
Policy that the police department has that has, those are the police department's guidelines. That the police department
Yeah, I was gonna say
asks you
that.
to follow. So,
Okay.
One section here, it says, we had to change it, written policy and procedures, and I wrote of the police department on how the owner and dog will be operated, and that's what these are. This is the big policies that Brandon and Chief put together, and it'll become part of Lexipol, and become part of our operation procedure. So we didn't put the whole draft in there, we referred to it in there.
So as long as we're meeting with Nick.
That got entered into, and it'll go back to Nick for that.
Yeah.
Okay, so right now we have a motion to accept the MOU for the therapy dog with proposed modifications subject to Nick's review. Can I get a second on
No
that?
second.
Okay. All in favor?
Hi.
Any opposed? Okay. Thanks, Brandon.
Thank you.
All right, discussion and possible action on the GMI demolition permit. There we go.
There we go. So the DMI demolition permit, we had at the last village board, and we had several conditions put together on it. In front of you is a letter, which were referred to all these conditions, and we went through them last week. Vanderwall, myself, and actually DMI. And we got through the snag of which one that we had in the past was really okay, I have it in a minute, developer agreement, pieces of it. And then we went through some of the amendments that we make on a developer agreement to meet our needs and their needs. Joe Moore is offering, he agreed to them. And basically I asked that we have this letter out to Joe to sign off on. Saying that regarding those are the conditions. If you notice, there's some top conditions. Those are pretty well, those are pretty process that has to happen to get it into the state. Down below are the ones that we want to make sure that's involved in it, and that's the preliminary plat, which we already looked at the plat that they had in the past. We can use a lot of that already. We also looked at the rezoning. We definitely, I'll be honest with you, Ray did do a PUD, brought together process. What I could not find was actually some of the documentation for the hearing, et cetera, that must have went to the village board. But we noticed there's a certain things that we want to change to it, so therefore they're agreeable to the PUD, which is everybody wants in the first place. So would the county would want that zoning available on their property, so would the computer building. He wants with PUD, so we're going, and so would, there's other pieces owned by the banker here. I can't think of his name off the hand.
Rob Sigler.
Yeah, he has a piece in there too. So all those we know want to come as a PUD, so we'll do that as a one whole PUD for all the properties besides just TMIs. And then contingent upon.
Is that underway?
That's, if you notice, that has to happen by the end of the year.
Okay.
That's, we gotta bring all this together, put the proper documents together, put the notice for hearing together, put everything so it's properly put together, so it gets approved by the village board and then becomes a PUD.
The demolition permit happens prior to this, and they're just saying that it's going to get done by the end of the year?
The demolition itself actually physically be done. Will be done in the spring of next
Will
year.
we issue the permit prior to the?
Yes,
PUD
we
being
issued
developed?
permits subject to these conditions. Yeah, subject to these conditions. And that's why basically I'm looking for this committee to say, move it forward, subject to these conditions being approved by DMI. Because I want DMI to sign off on it.
So just to,
Mhm.
Joe was in on the call where you talked about all this, but he
Yes.
hasn't signed it yet.
Yes,
And how long has he had it now?
I'll be honest with you. Scott was supposed to send it to him last week. I pushed Scott from not Vanderwall, Scott, younger Scott. I said, where is it? I looked for it at ASAP and he apologized. He said, I sent it to you. It's anybody else. He said, I forgot to send it to Joe.
Okay,
And Joe's got it today, but I already know Joe was agreeing to a lot of them. We had my bullet point in front of him. We went through them verbally already.
And this has been vetted through Vanderwall?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
We all did it together.
I do have one additional question. if
Go
I
ahead.
may. How are we gonna ensure that these things, and is it gonna fall on Ben, or who's it gonna fall on to make sure some of these things are happening, like the FERC permit and the DNR permit, they're meeting those guidelines?
Those permits, they can't do it without, they can't do anything without. those
How do we know that they're actually following FERC guidelines and DNR?
Because Vanderwall will still be here to make sure the permits portion through.
I don't know if it's gonna fall on you, because I think we talked briefly about that, how are we gonna ensure? that
These
they're
gotta come
doing those
before
things?
I leave. These will be happening before I leave. And
I just wanna make sure that we have enough knowledge base that we're
actually,
verifying. that
I
these
talked to
things are
Ben.
being
Ben's
done
got a
right.
lot of knowledge on this. He understands those very well. He
That's
said-
fine. I just don't know who in the village, because if they don't do it, is it gonna fall on DMI or is it gonna fall on the village if they don't meet?
They don't mean it, we're gonna stop them, red tag the whole thing and us. It's, Ben knows what that's like.
Well, eventually, essentially, a lot of this stuff is gonna have to go through Nick.
Yeah.
For his verification on the
Yeah.
permit. I mean,
Correct.
Nick's gonna have to sign off on some of this stuff, because
Yeah.
he's gonna know if it's legal, if it's illegal
Correct.
documents that
Yeah.
are coming
just-
into the village.
Exactly. I wanna make sure that we know how we're gonna verify.
Right
that.
now, we're trying to get all the information together and then I wanted to make sure this was signed off by them. And then when we start doing our permit, we're gonna issue subject to this, but we need Nick, someone here to learn it. And knowing Ben, he would, gotta use Nick.
So what's the status of their involvement with the building that they own half of?
Oh, that's the next thing I need.
that's the next agenda item.
Because
So-
that, we had talked about potentially putting that, attaching it in here to leverage.
Based on talking to Vanderwall, and we don't want to tie it to this permit because we have a separate that's land, it's that piece of land is not being a permit process for.
Right,
I
but
know what you're saying, you asked for it the last time we talked about it.
yeah, and they have offered and agreed to a lot and done close to nothing.
We're much aware of it.
It makes me uncomfortable.
I'll be honest with you, this was being pushed, this has been going through a lot of process when Ray was here. It was bringing it to almost to a point, and then when he left, and I got involved with Vanderwall, we pushed them back accidentally. In other words, they were upset with us for that they were ready to go out of this year, and we made them stop.
I don't believe that. They
Well,
may,
what?
I believe they told you that, but
Well, we heard, I know how my butt got chewed because he was very upset because I said, money, you're not getting this. I gave him a lot of, we're not doing anymore. He just drove Mr. Moore nuts.
Okay, so I understand the frustration with DMI. I mean, we don't know if it's gonna continue or not, but I guess this is the next step, right?
Yeah.
Is to move it forward to the board and hope that Joe signs and we move forward, right? Okay, so you're looking for a motion to, does anyone have any other questions before we?
is this gonna be in a contractual thing
Yeah,
beyond this memo and Nick
Yeah.
is gonna do that?
no, it'll be the whole permitting process. It's in, but that, we have a permit by ordinance.
Right,
And Vanderwall, we're going through with Vanderwall piece by piece by piece by piece. And when they get the whole documents together, that permit is being done and signed on. And it's actually done once already, when they originally put the process together, the project, and then they backed out because of the demo portion. So we're taking the original piece, was all signed off, and actually Harrington is one that says, you gotta do this or you're not gonna get your permit. That's where we're at. And basically, it's all based on the getting it from the village board, because yours gotta come first before you go get some of those other ones from the state.
Apologize if you don't know about that. How long is the permit good for?
We still had it out there, but because
Is it time bounded?
yeah,
Our permits that we normally issue are 1 year and then they need to be re-upped.
re-up.
That's how our building and construction permits would go.
Okay.
And I'm guessing this would follow that same thing.
It will, because the other one was bad, was no longer in place because they didn't follow through on it.
So it's for 1 year. Able
They
to
gotta
be
renew it.
Able to be renewed.
Mhm.
Okay.
You gotta pay to renew it. I mean,
Yep.
it's up to the village, but it has in our ordinance basically to
Yep.
re-up, pay for a new permit, because that permit is essentially expired.
Okay, thank you.
Has Nick reviewed this?
No, he has not reviewed this section because we're still hammering out what's gonna be in the permit process.
Mhm.
And there's no reason for me to put an attorney on this. And I have enough, it's getting messed up a lot by, I shouldn't say, right. We're making sure with Vanderwall, myself, that we meet all the requirements of your ordinance. And that's what we're trying to do. And then when we get done with that, we'll issue the permit subject to these pieces. And you still have to have all those in the final. I don't blame you for being, we are, because
Well,
I've been here before.
and I'll probably, at this point, I think if there is a way to have a separate contractually that this is gonna trigger this, is gonna trigger this, if that's possible, that's what I'd like to see, because they've completely
Mhm.
run roughshod over this village, and I just want every single effort that we can do. And so with that, before I would feel comfortable completely supporting it, I would think that we need to have Nick, do you have what you need to take action and protect the village if necessary?
I think we do it with this contingent piece on it, because if they don't meet any of these requirements, it's not gonna happen. That's how we're setting it up. And that's how it's been explained to Joe. And when we went through round and round on the development agreement, we finally told him, you're gonna have it, but you can modify it. So we started showing how you can modify it. And he said, oh, okay, we had a lot of things that the village did before. Had a lot of items in there based on, we were contributing funds through the TIF rate. We're no longer contributing funds to it. There's these certain hammers that we had in it. We don't need to have it in it because it's not gonna be any of our money. It's gonna be his money, their money.
But we're still the ones left sitting here with this.
It's in our community.
Yeah.
It's-
And-
I mean, the biggest thing that we added, and I was with, and I think Dwayne can talk about it, but basically this one has a bond of $1.5 million
That's
on
very
it.
important.
So the bond is, the last time we didn't have a bond, so we
Right.
couldn't go back anything, but the $1.5 million bond, if they walk away, we as a village can go after this $1.5 million bond to make sure it gets done. To me, and that's an important piece that Nick and somebody needs to be involved. I mean, that's what saved the savior on any project or any big event is a bond. So the bond is a very important
It's very
part of
important.
this that needs to be followed through with the correct personnel and
And-
administration.
Using this demolition permit, I think that it's a tool of leverage that we potentially could use, and I would like to explore what would Nick think if we attached what needs to be done in that building with this building permit somehow, or
What building?
demolition permit, the one that the county owns half and they own half.
This all pertains to the mill
Mill.
Right.
property.
Right, but we still have that responsibility, what's gonna happen with that? So how well we work with this.
I can
how-
tell you right now, if you want to tie that to it, the permit's not gonna get processed. That's where it sits, because half that building now sits in the county's hands,
Right,
and the other half's their
So-
hands. So if you're gonna tie that to this permit, I know I've worked them long enough, and I would say to them, I would not do it either. I'll be very honest with you. I'm being honest with you,
Yeah.
because when you start putting certain circumstances on certain things, you tie to another item, you walk. And if you want to walk, there's other things that happen, they can walk if they want to. And the first part is, if, for example, the most important thing of that whole property over there is the rail. And that's where they get the money portion. Now, if that rail moves someplace else, I'll use Ben's words, they're gonna walk completely.
mhm.
So you gotta start putting them, with them to have teeth in it, give them some chance to put some money into it so they don't walk. So I'm being very honest with you.
So there's been no conversation about what they're gonna do with the other half of that building that,
Yes, there is. That's on next time. If you want me to go to that, I'll do that.
Okay, we're gonna go ahead and
You gotta-
do a
you mix
motion to
them.
move this forward. Again, I understand the frustration, but bottom line, right now, DMI isn't beholden to us to do anything legally. We don't have any, so to get this done, like Ben said, to attach it to the bond, I think that that's what they're willing to give us.
Sure do.
Unfortunately, that's where it starts and ends. We've got to move this process forward. So,
Do you need a motion?
yeah, I do, Rick.
I make a motion that we move contingent upon this
Conditions.
these conditions, that we move it to the board for review and approval. Is that appropriate?
It's for the actual demo permit.
So motion to accept the DMI demolition permit contingent upon the conditions outlined for board approval.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
That.
All
Thank
right,
you.
can I get a second? I'll second it. All right, all in favor, say aye.
I
Motion passes. Thank you. All right. Next up, we have a discussion and possible action on the Woods County 2025 Economic Development Grant.
Okay, so I'll start talking about the health in the room. It's the administration building. She missed the meeting. You had a meeting, you were here at a meeting, we talked to the county. You missed it. We had a very good meeting with the county. What happens is the county, over a period of time, through the process of the Woodbridge history, that Boz was doing a lot of work with DMI and also the county. The county indicated, yeah, if the county took it over, maybe he indicated the village would purchase or take it over. There's no way that ever came to the village board, but he had those discussions with the county. So I did not know that when I put the grant application in. But the grant application in, the county's treasurer had not a good relationship with Ray and DMI, both of them, on how they want to handle it. So the county ended up taking that building over. If they knew what condition it was and it was not attached to the building, I don't think the county had even accepted it, but they did anyway. So now they have it in their ownership. And basically, the other ownership, but if you look at the property, the other part of the building is attached to it. So the county can't do anything with their building, nor can DNI do anything with that building. So you have those two people part of the building. So if you put any contingents on it, it also affects the county. That's why I'm telling you that. So what happened is that we put the grant application in place. We weren't ready, we don't know if we're gonna approve it or not. I went back to the DMI and we showed them actually what the grant application was for. And I looked right at it and I said, I have a big question, it was your question. I said, would you participate in the cost of this grant to start looking at how to find demo funds, how to find grants, and also trying to eventually find a developer, which Ray was doing. So and actually, Mr. Moore said, I think you got a great application, great idea. I definitely would be involved and participate. I said, what's the amount of money? He said, I can't give it to you right now. He says, I said, well, I don't have the grant approved yet, but we definitely move forward on it. He said, "I'll definitely participate." So today we had the meeting, the first meeting of the county. And it went to the first committee section. Making a long story short, there were so many applications. When this one came up, the county says, yeah, we really want to make sure we want to participate because they have
a vested interest.
vested interest also. And then the actual Jason also said, listen, he says, if we don't do something there, he says, look, we would be, look, this building had set there for a long time. So would be in the village. And basically we can start this. It may get us grant applications to start doing a demo. Both, I've talked to another developer, so is the county, and so is Moore, Joe Moore. And they all want to know if they can get, if the building can be demolished. Everybody's ready to do anything with the Greensfield site. So we have people very much interested in that area. The big elephant in the room is getting demolished, demoed, and finding demo funds. And that's what this whole grant process is the beginning of doing that. So that's why I know it was not tied with the permit. And then it's set by, and it's tied with, you got, I call it three folks or three parties. It's in the village. and the village says, wants something to happen to it. The county has now ownership of it, which I think is, they don't want it, but I'm glad they do, because we need another partner in the piece. And third, DMI's got a portion of it too, and they want to get rid of it. They were ready to set, get the property off if someone else does a demo, but they still have the building, so they're responsible. So it's this little projects of $20,000, is put program together to see if we can, where we can get some grant funds, do the demolition portion of it. And we don't own it. It's like, so we don't own it. DMI owns it, responsibility, the county responsibility. So the county says, where are we going to find funds? I said, well, we have, as a consortium of 3, need to do something if you want to do anything with that property. So that's where it sits at this point in time.
Do you want to talk a little bit about the ad hoc committee thought process of that?
I'll let you do that because it would then come from me, and it was,
Okay.
it was a group of trustees who were listening to that with the county, and they asked a lot of questions of the county.
The
So
county, Heather was here and Jason was
Jason.
here, and they really want to try to do something with that property. They don't have any money, but they want to know that the village has ownership in it. Because the village doesn't want, they're interested in getting that property developed, they're not gonna push for it. So Joe recommended having an ad hoc committee, I think that reports to this committee,
Correct.
to get the 3 parties together, county, DMI, and the village
Yes.
together to start to look for funds to develop plans for it and demolition funds. So if you get those funds, what's out there and what's available, to try to get those parties and look for that, because if you want development, you're gonna need a plan. A developer is gonna want a plan, and they're gonna really try to get the greenfield site. And I agree with him. If you get a greenfield site or get those buildings raised, you're gonna have people lining up for that
Mhm.
property.
And I
So
think,
how do
oh,
we,
sorry.
go ahead.
And I think part of that conversation too, because I was there, was that, I'm all tangled in this thing. Is that the municipality, because they've seen these things, if you remember Kimberly or Appleton area, they have these things that the municipality kind of needs to take the lead. Maybe not putting the funds up, maybe not sticking resources into it, but the organizing, the getting together, the coordination and the collaboration piece that I think we can do. I mean, we've all banged our heads up against the wall money wise. And I don't think anybody feels comfortable shoving a bunch of money towards this, but I think we do have a responsibility to be able to sit at a table and be like, how can we help? If it is applying for a grant, yeah, we can. If DMI doesn't come to the table saying, okay, we'll do part of this grant, even if it's $5,000, we can pull the plug and be like, okay, well, we tried. You need to have some ownership in it too. And I also think if DMI comes to the table with $5,000 or more to match that grant, then they start putting a little bit of money and a little bit of pieces together, then they kind of get that ownership. So I think it is our responsibility as the village to be that conduit piece as well. We can't just walk away from it because it's right here.
Right.
If we walk away from it, again, I'm not saying we take a whole bunch of money, but if we can, again, sit, coordinate, do what we can, and municipalities are gonna get more grants. So if you have municipality and then the county attached and working together for grant purposes, those are gonna come a lot more than a DMI applying for a grant, especially if you have all of us together. So that was part of that conversation as well, as like, we have to have some skin in the game in order to have this succeed. And I think if we don't, we start being just as guilty as DMI does, if we're not gonna be not quite as
possible.
guilty, but I mean, we can't just wash our hands of it.
No, and I
Essentially.
agree, we can't, but I am very comfortable with the role of helping the organizing.
Mhm. And that's what that
The
ad hoc
important point,
committee.
and I want to
would be.
piggyback on what Mansell is saying. The county is very supportive of trying to do something there, but they want ownership or some input in ownership by the village.
Mhm.
So if we could have a consortium, they will help look for grants and help. doing
They'll even do the
something, 'cause they
grant
don't want
writing.
That building
Mhm.
either, but they want it developed. They want to get it
Right.
off their hands. They want to get it developed. So if we show ownership and drive it, Heather sat here and said, then we will help support this and we will go help. look
So
for
what
funds.
exactly does their ownership mean? When they want us to have ownership, what does that mean?
It's that ad hoc
that
committee.
ad hoc committee, because when Joe suggested that, she perked up and said, that's a good idea. Because then it's showing commitment by the village, we'll be part of it, and we will look for additional funds to try to get some of these things going that Wayne was talking about. And then start that ball rolling.
Cause she said, we're looking, what, 1.5 to 2 million to tear it down,
Mhm.
the number she
Yep.
was
Yep.
saying.
Yeah,
I mean,
we talked about it
it's
today.
Definitely a,
But they know all the
Grants are gonna be
blighted
fun to
funds,
get that kind of
grants
money.
and all of that stuff, and they can access that, and they can support that on a
And then they
county
have-
to state level.
And then they have grant writers who that's what they do all the time, where that's gonna help them
Jason said he would
too.
help write the grants. And so there's a collaboration partnership, which.
And again, it doesn't mean that we're gonna
Positive.
spend a bunch of our money, but it is being able to sit at a table and have discussions.
Okay, so in summary, it sounds like everybody is on board with this, on board with the ad hoc committee and would like to move this forward. So in order to do so, Dwayne, we're talking about possible action, are you just?
I'll
looking
make a
for us to-
motion.
And just one for clarification. We already had that grant from the DNR, and that already laid out 3 development alternatives that was presented to you a while back. We've used that already and a couple of developers looking at it. They say, oh, wow, this is what you can do with it. So it's already got that piece.
Mhm.
And but the bottom line is that you were right. I like to see DMI have some skin in it.
Mhm.
Because when they have some skin in it, they have response for demo too. And they're there, you gotta grab them. And if they're willing to put some skin in this piece, then they can't walk away from that building either. see.
Well, they've walked away from a lot that they can't walk away from, so I appreciate what you're saying and all the angles. But I mean, we've just been burned so much and the village is looking to the board like, what is going on? But for this purpose, I will make a motion to,
Right, before we make, can I ask one quick question? The grant that was submitted already, what properties were included in that grant? Was it what was a YMCA property?
The YMC property was included for discussions if we
Okay.
want for a portion of it,
Okay,
yes.
for the record, I had a conversation with Tim Berghauser, who's the incoming the chairman of the board or leader of the board for the YMCA, about sharing some of this that we're looking at grants for that. And the YMCA needs to be aware of what's going on. So that whole property may have multiple use value. So depending on what's happening with that facility, whether they're gonna look at raising it or keeping part of it, I think it's an integral part. And I think they need to be aware of what's going on.
maybe they bring a representative and On the ad
I'm
hoc
on that
committee.
board too.
Mhm.
I'm on that committee for the YMCA.
so you're that.
I guess I'm the top. I'll bring back what they're doing, what they're looking at doing.
Tara, back to you.
So I will make the motion to,
So do we,
We don't need.
we don't.
Okay.
is
I
the
think
action just a recommendation to form an ad hoc committee or what do you need?
That's would be, if the grant gets approved. Right now, it's going to the first phase of the county. Still gotta go to another committee and I gotta go to the board.
So right now, this is just, it's not necessarily impossible action.
No, but I would say no action because I still want to get DMI involved. It's more of an update. We always write discussion possible action in case
Just in
something
case.
comes out of it.
Comes up,
That's
sure.
How and when do we move forward with the ad hoc committee?
So at the next board meeting,
I would say when you know the grant is actually approved
Right.
by the county. Or you can, what happen, chicken, egg for a chicken, or you say you're gonna form one and let the county know.
well, I think that was the integral piece for the
Yes,
county.
yeah.
So my plan was under president's report, be like, this was my plan. And I have to find people who want to be on the ad hoc committee too. So,
So basically pending grant approval, this committee is making a recommendation for an ad hoc committee.
I think we almost need that before grant approval, because that was that piece that the county wanted to see us
And there's
doing.
no
Correct.
harm in creating an ad hoc committee.
That doesn't do anything. That
They
may
will-
have to get.
Today I
canceled.
was there and our staff was very positive on us moving it forward. So that group already said this is one of them that they like to fund.
Mhm.
So it's gotta go through the next step.
But they would like to see the.
But they would
ad
like to
hoc
see the ad hoc
before,
committee.
So they know that we have.
And then somebody can track, like a group of people can track it.
So do you do a motion for that, or just do you want it written in their action is to create an ad?
You were not involved with it that much. I would think it should come from her because she was involved in that meeting.
Mhm.
Now you see how I passed it off to those two because they were there and it's, you board members gotta make those decisions. not-
Yeah, we can do that at the board meeting under president's report or even. I can do that.
All right, thank you. Old business. Anything?
No, not old business, new business.
New business.
New business and basically everybody says it can't be happened done, but I did reach out to some developers about property that is in the village. And basically, and then the developer reached out to us already moved from Weston to Plover. He's always got a project starting on Marshfield. And today at the meeting, he's one of the possible project he has with Pittsville. And basically I said, I couldn't believe he's that tied up on it. He said, yes, I am. And I said, well, I said, if that 40, that's Bronxhead school. That, what's his name? Come on.
Oh, by the outdoor classroom.
Yep.
What's the name of the property? owner?
Mr.
Yeah.
Carver.
He may not want to slow it down, but I said, yeah. I said to him, I said, if we had a piece, he's first thing he actually said, is it all sand? I said, yes. I said, is there sewer and water? I said, no, sewer and water's on the street next door. He said, would it be an impossible TIF? I said, don't know. I said, you have to have a developer come in. He said, why don't you just send me information? He says, and said, wherever the village goes, I'd be interested to look at it. But that's all I want you to know is that I did some feelers. And this is the one I know that might be interesting. I didn't realize he was that tied up in other communities, but he's
For residential development,
in his case, it'd be mixed use residential.
what does,
That means could be duplexes, can be apartments, it could be housing.
Okay.
Mhm.
And that's the land by the ELC that he's looking at.
Mhm.
That's a weird, I told him that, not he's
Between
looking at.
bunker and that.
Yeah. He's not looking at it. I showed him what we have open in our master plan. See, that was there.
Okay, but it's the Carver land, not
Yeah.
village land.
Right.
No, that's right.
So has anybody talked to him?
No, I didn't want to do that yet.
This is an open recorded meeting, sir.
So that's fine. You can talk. I mean, I haven't done that yet. It was more talking about if the village was
Mhm.
on their comp plan, it has that piece as residential, and that's what you use for discussions. That's what the comp plan is nice to have.
Right. Any correspondence?
I just want to let you know I reached
Nope.
out. That's all.
Not for this one.
So future agenda items?
Probably.
Update from Wood County,
Yeah.
update on the comprehensive plan from Wood County, right?
Mhm. And then
Yes, I got my
the,
notes. Get some more information.
Okay. Um, You want an update on the demo permit? On the next agenda?
Yeah, you have, but then I want them more because we're actually should be going to the village board. I hope we have that done. We want to continue that discussion all the time. This piece of property.
And as well as the economic
Yes,
development grant.
we're gonna be following that too.
Anything new on that?
But by the next meeting of the month, we'll know where the county's at, maybe. They gotta go through their committee structure to finalize.
Anything else? Anybody? Okay, and next meeting date?
do you want to keep it on the same week?
when is the public safety?
They're gonna
April
do.
third?
Oh.
Third. They thought, when you said yours, they'll set theirs. That was back.
That was pretty sad.
No, Joe was
Yeah, Joe. Wednesday.
21st, I believe.
We do the 21st at 5:30, which is at 4:30.
They're 5. You're-
Then we have Parkus at 5,
Okay.
right? We
Mhm.
just did that one.
Yeah, parks we want to do before pet, right?
Right, so then otherwise that's gonna be 4:35, 5:30.
They would,
That's also the night of the
what you said.
music in the park, right?
Right, so we can figure it out at the board meeting though too. If we can't come up with it for sure.
to be determined.
Sure.
Sure. I know we're on the same with public safety now. Parks and cemeteries on the same date or same date.
Well, we moved it because the back to school night is on the 28th.
And it's here both on parks and on the pit meeting, so that's why we were doing it together, because they're both here.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Same
Yeah,
night.
and it works good for Ben too.
I agree. And public safety was,
It's up to you guys moving forward. I mean,
Yeah, we'll figure it out.
thanks, Jen.
thank you. All right, anything else? All right, without objection, we will adjourn at 6:30.